Is your church a cult and you don't know it? Hey y'all, welcome back to Mending with Mindy. I wanted to talk to y'all today about signs of being in a cult. I know it's a little different from the normal content that I upload, but I also run a different YouTube channel called Raw and Real where I cover true crime. I recently interviewed the son of a cult leader.
They would lay a baby on a blanket and, like a 6, 8 month old or something like that. And they would put certain toys or phones around it. And if it reaches for the phone, they would smack its hand.
I'm going to hide behind the fact that our good Lord says, do not spare the rod.
David Martin had a real showdown. It was a one-night showdown, and that child never forgot it.
So the child learns the command means you're going to get a hand smack. And Gwen would talk about the younger they are when they do that, the easier it will be when they're older.
What were her primary teachings regarding discipline?
There was a police raid on the Waydown building in 2004.
Remnantfellowship is now part of a murder investigation.
I'm not scared of a spanking. You haven't spanked them. If you haven't really spanked them yet, you don't love them.
You may have heard of this cult because it's been featured on HBO called The Way Down. It's also been made into a Lifetime movie called Starving for Salvation. There have been so many documentaries and content creators covering this case. So I felt so honored to be able to interview Michael. But honestly, talking to him blew my mind. She drew in thousands with her promises of discipline, devotion, and divine approval. I know what you're thinking. This could never happen to me. I would never fall for being in a cult. Listen, I understand because I thought the same thing. But after talking to Michael, I understand just how easily people could fall victim to joining a cult without even realizing it. So let's get into it. One thing that I found very interesting, I asked Michael,
Say I did step foot into Remnant for the first time. What could a first-time visitor expect? How do they get you to stay without making it feel or seem cult-like?
I think the word would be love bombing. You're going to get right off the bat kind of just overwhelmed with how friendly everyone is. Everyone they show you, they'll take you around the building, show you the stuff Gwen painted on the walls and the decorations. You'll get invited to lunches and dinners with leaders and small group leaders. Get invited to the events. They will they'll pair you with people in small groups. They will start to gather information on you and start a file on you.
From day one?
From day one.
they love bomb you. Who doesn't enjoy being love bombed? I love when I feel accepted and welcome and loved. And I think this is the part that really kind of creeped me out a little bit. Remnantfellowship Church is located only a couple of miles from where I used to live. When I lived in this particular location, it was right after I had separated from my ex-husband. I was going through a bitter custody battle. I was trying to juggle several jobs. I was just in a very vulnerable, defeated place in my life. So had I walked into this church, I probably easily would have fallen victim because I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to feel supported. I wanted to feel accepted and not alone. He also talks about how they'll help you with jobs and help you with housing, whatever you may need. Again, at that particular time in my life, that is something that would have been very appealing to me. I can see how people kind of get roped in, and before you even realize it, your entire life is being controlled. I think a common misconception with cults, if you will, is that people assume that you're gonna know right off the bat, right? That you're automatically gonna be like, red flag, red flag, red flag, but that is not the case. In fact, it's quite different because you do feel welcome and They start plugging you into different small groups, so you feel like you are a part of something bigger. A cult is going to gradually start controlling you. It's not going to be sudden. It's not going to be the second you walk through the door. They're going to create that rapport slowly. Over time, they're going to start tightening the control. Let's talk about some of the signs that you may be in a cult. Number 1, they influence who you can and cannot hang out with.
You would have the threats of losing your family because Remnant was, they're isolating the members from the outside world.
Remnant Fellowship had faced accusations of breaking up families when one person joins but other family members refuse. In a 2004 divorce case out of Connecticut, Hominy versus Hominy, the court quoted the Remnant wife's statements that we must take God's work seriously and we must take everything his prophet Gwen and the other leaders are saying seriously. The wife also said leaders in Remnant have to be willing to stand up and get rid of even relatives who are idol worshipers.
Do you think that Remnant Fellowship has been responsible for the breakup of any families associated with the church?
Check to the form.
In the Hominy case, the court said Remnant Fellowship provided $10,000 to help with the wife's legal fees.
When Remnant members go through divorces, do you ever fund litigation for those folks?
Me personally, no.
Shamblin went on to explain that Remnant Fellowship has a committee that addresses requests for financial help from members, including help with legal fees. Yet when the attorney tried to get into the details,
I'm an instructor not to answer any.
Shamblin's lawyer, Remnant leader Russ Morgan, objected, citing what he called Tennessee's pastor's privilege. Remnant's church services have even drawn protests from parents who say Shamblin encouraged her followers to cut off contact with their non-Remnant families.
I don't understand why Mom's out here picketing my church. Both of y'all are so brainwashed that y'all don't even know.
One of those parents, Pamela Carney, blamed Shamblin personally.
It's all about being here under Gwen's control. She wants to control everybody.
I do believe we are onto things. I believe God's making public what we're doing.
And the parents are going to be cut off. They're no longer going to be in contact with the children. They would discourage people from attending other churches, or, you'd be discouraged. You're constantly discouraged from, associating with other family members not in the church.
Such a family person, I just can't imagine getting to a point where I literally cut my loved ones out, but I guess people are so ingrained with her teachings. Is that kind of what happens, that they're so almost brainwashed that they feel like that's what they have to do to be in God's favor or whatever?
Yes, because essentially, that's a good question, because really at the core of it, Gwen is talking about God is more important than family. Obviously, what Gwen says is most important, if you really come down to it. But what she's saying is God it's more important to follow God than follow family.
This is the true church.
You're isolating people from your outside family, from outside teachings. Once again, they're not allowed to listen to outside teachings. They don't have alternate viewpoints. If they did go see their relative for lunch, they come back and they've got to download what was talked about.
You're kidding.
Their small group leader would ask, how does it go? How did it go? Did they bring up any alternative viewpoints? They would talk them through that and why. Good thing we have the truth. Good thing we have the message. Over time, your identity changes.
If a church is hindering you from talking to other people, it is not a church of Jesus Christ, because Jesus tells us to go out and talk to everybody, to witness to everybody. Whether they believe the same thing as us or not, we are supposed to be stewards. We are supposed to be light within the community and to reach the lost. Number 2, authoritarian type leadership. If you have a leader who is controlling, is looked at almost as a prophet.
How does she know what's going on in my life, that this is the answer my, so intimately, into my life? Obviously, it's the Spirit of God. But we've also had times where we're like, I wish I could ask Gwen a question right now.
She allows people to call her a prophet. And she was a manipulative person.
Are you a prophet?
I don't believe I know what my gift name is. So I will tell you, I'm still wrestling with that. I've been told that for years.
She can work people over pretty masterfully to where, it starts switching their validation. They're no longer getting validation from God. He's switching it over time, slowly, to where you're getting validation from Gwen.
Like, you cannot question anything that he or she says or does. Another red flag. Even if members of the church questioned leadership, that would be written in a file, which every single member has a file on them from the second they walk through the doors of Remnant.
Every time they've ever had a doubt about Gwen, there would be lists of saying so-and-so's wife said he had a doubt about leadership. That's on record.
However, many of them don't know that.
I'm going to say this, and the people at Remnant are not going to like this, but if the Remnant members sitting in that building realized how much information that these people have on them, there would be no one left in those seats.
That begins to happen again. Red flag. Number 3, control. This one is pretty obvious. I think about like narcissistic kinds of relationships. You can easily be drawn in to falling in love with a narcissist, for example, because initially they come off very charming, very charismatic, successful, and you end up falling in love. Over time, they start controlling the way you dress, your daily actions, what you can say, what you can't say, who you can hang out with, who you can't hang out with.
What you can't. And by that point, she had masterfully controlled every element of her life. She had picked it's complicated. She had picked the spouse for me. I had an arranged marriage. And they had me so ingrained in the church.
That is what happens in a cult. If they are dictating everything from what you eat to how you present yourself to who you can and cannot hang out with, that is not okay. I have never been to a church that has controlled any of my life decisions. Fourthly, guilt, manipulation, or coercion. Gwen Shamblin, who was the leader of this cult, she started demanding that employees of her Way Down workshops, which existed prior to Remnant Fellowship Church, she started demanding that her employees attend Remnant Fellowship.
Whoever was working at the Way Down office or anybody participating, they had to start coming to Remnant services. They should become her full-on follower, her acolyte. She's got a new startup religion, and they needed to fully show their support. And that set off a lot of people. There were a lot of people very confused by this. Keep in mind, these were people who'd worked for her for years and given up their entire lives to serve her. And it eventually culminated with several of the employees going together and filing a class action lawsuit against Gwen.
If not, their job, their livelihood was on the line. Michael talked about how he tried to leave the church. He tried to go to college, but he was set down, basically threatened.
I would have been homeless, and I knew she would give me no support. There would be I'd be sleeping in my car and never seeing my kids again, and forcing a divorce. And
stuff is happening, it's time to take a step back and really think about what kind of church this is. Is it a church that is truly being used for the glory of God and to teach scripture as it is meant to be taught? Or is it meant to benefit the leader? Yes, Gwen would talk about God, but she would manipulate scripture to benefit her. Number 5, financial exploitation. If you are consistently being reminded to buy this book or buy this course, red flag. As Christians, we know that we're supposed to tithe. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about all of the extra.
Other books are discouraged besides what Gwen writes.
So, for example, Gwen Shamblin, she had this successful Way Down workshop. Allegedly, members of Remnant Fellowship Church were required to purchase her Way Down workshops. You should never feel pressured to donate large sums of money or work for free. Number 6, suppressing critical thinking. If you ask a question and it is met with a defensive response, it's because they see you as a puppet that they can control. They don't want you to use critical thinking. That will expose them for who they are. If your doubts are reframed as personal failure instead of a legitimate concern, huge red flag, guys. If information or scripture is filtered or manipulated in a way to only benefit the group, red flag. My mind was absolutely blown when Michael told me about how if a member would visit another church, oftentimes Remnant Fellowship would have leadership from Remnant go into these churches almost as spies to make sure nothing bad was being said about Remnant Fellowship and to look around and see if any Remnant Fellowship members were in a new church. It makes me so sad to think about this and to think about how people are being manipulated. This church still operates today as a Christian. It just makes me so sad, you guys, to think that these cults still exist today. I think a lot of people assume that cults were kind of a thing of the past. They don't really exist in 2026. If anything, this entire story, this interview with Michael, it has really opened my eyes that these kinds of cults do still exist. I just want to end with this. It is always so important that we use our God-given discernment. If you're visiting a church and something feels off, don't ignore that. God gives us discernment for a reason, and it is so important that we use our God-given discernment. Y'all have talked about that before in some of my videos. If you like Christian-inspired content, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel for more uplifting, encouraging, and educational videos. Thanks.